Right, I thought I would start at the very beginning. I'll start by introducing myself. My name is Dr. Esa Zanambasi. I'm a medical doctor by training, but by passion, I love to ask why. Why is something happening? And in so doing, I was privileged to be introduced to Neolife about 26 years ago. And that's because I was asking, why are my children developing rashes and hay fever, and why are they so irritated? And I also asked, why are we always so tired? So in asking why, I was made to pray for an opportunity, and the Lord led me to this one. It's the only opportunity I have ever looked at, and I believe it will be all I ever need because it is a total opportunity. I'm a mother of 3 adults, a grandmother of 2 little ones, and the wife of Dr. Edward Nambasi. And we have every reason to be grateful for this opportunity. So I thought that I should talk about cellular energy production, especially in the light of this past week when we've had some very exciting products introduced to markets, both East Africa and Southern Africa. So I just want to remind you that what you find at the end of your fork is actually more powerful than anything you'll find at the bottom of a prescription pill bottle, okay? And let's talk about the cell. The cell looks something like that. And we are made of trillions of cells. Each one has to do it needs some basic requirements. It has to be fed, it has to excrete, it has to work very hard, and the working parts of the cell are called the mitochondria, which I will focus on. And then after that, it has to reproduce other healthy cells. And then it has to die decently, because if it does not die decently, that is the beginning of a cancer cell. So feed, work, excrete, reproduce, and die decently. Those are the main things that I think a cell is supposed to do. And we are made of trillions, but within the cell are these little things called mitochondria. And those are the powerhouses or the power stations of the cell. Within the cell, they are a delicate and very, very highly intricate system. It's a double membrane, and there are several of them in the harder working cells. So you can imagine the heart, which starts pumping from conception right through one's life. Each cell of the heart has thousands, not just 1 or 2, but thousands of mitochondria. And it's so important to make sure that they're looked after. And that energy enables the cell to do the work it is supposed to do, such as to produce enzymes for the gut and elsewhere, hormones. If it's a muscular cell, contraction and relaxation, generation of heat, digestion, rethinking, and feeling. So that's another bigger picture of a mitochondrion. And I'm going to point out some unique features of mitochondria that will get you to realize why we have the products that we do. Mitochondria have DNA in them. And I also got another piece of information as I was reading today that mitochondria actually store a lot of nutrients such as minerals and vitamins. So the importance of mitochondria. This is the place where our basic life requirements, that is air and food, are combined to make energy. There's a cycle there called the Krebs cycle. And increasing mitochondrial function is one of the most effective ways to boost cellular energy and therefore enhance efficiency of every biochemical reaction and cellular process in the body. So by boosting mitochondrial function, you can actually potentially slow down the visible aging process, not the chronological. In other words, you can't stop the clock, but you can stop the ravages of the passing time. So I've done this one before, but I'll run through it again, just so that we understand the ABCs of why we do what we do. It's important to understand what disease or dis-ease, in other words, when the body is not at ease, how it starts. But by understanding the value of food and what food does in our body, carbohydrates, those are important for cell energy and balance of sugar. That's what we call glucose homeostasis. So knowing that will impact food choices as well. Then essential fatty acids, the metabolism of that, the usage of that, will determine the pro-inflammatory and anti-inflammatory states and immune regulation. And then, of course, the detoxification capacity will determine how much of the heavy metals and other free radicals remain in your cells or get excreted. And if they remain, they will cause a lot of oxidative damage. That is what rusting is all about. Your cells actually would rust. So what actually is going on in the body when people complain of diseases, for example, in the musculoskeletal system, where there is a high turnover of bones, muscles, and connective tissue, if there is a challenge there, they will develop mobility issues such as arthritis or constant chronic pain in the body, in the muscles and all that. And then nervous system, what happens if there is a problem there? It will affect executive functions such as thinking and reasoning, and generally health of the brain. It will cause mood disorders, and people might suffer from sleep disorders as well. And then hormonal systems. That is a huge system. I call it an orchestra, and that's why I've underlined the word orchestrate. Like the pancreas, it produces a lot of enzymes and hormones for our digestion. But the key hormone that I want everybody to be aware of is the thyroid hormone, the thyroid gland rather. And that also produces very important hormones, the thyroid hormones, which affect every cell, every single cell in the body. So if the thyroid, for one reason or another, is not functioning well, the whole body is affected. And then, of course, the adrenals, those are functional for our stress responses, our motivation, in other words, our get up and go to work, and to be so motivated to share near life, as an example. So if the adrenals are low, that won't happen. And then other ones that gonads or sex hormone production. Yes, and then fat and protein metabolism, manifestation, weight and fat distribution, and obviously ability to generally be alive and well. So foundations, today is the day for foundations. But I want you to focus on the mitochondria because that's where energy is produced. And here are some facts that are important to know. Dysfunctional mitochondria results in diseases. And cells have hundreds, even thousands of mitochondria. I have said that already. A characteristic of mitochondria is that they have their own DNA. That is the nuclear material that actually programs the future cells. And then they also have ribosomes. Those are the things that make protein synthesis. They synthesize protein for cellular function, proteins such as enzymes. And then mitochondria live for about 100 days. So let's say about 3 months in humans. And about 2 billion mitochondria are made every second throughout a person's life. Can you imagine? 2 billion mitochondria are being made every second. So the reason for this presentation is, what are we doing for our mitochondria that create energy? Yes, I've pointed this out, but I'll emphasize it. The heart muscle cells have most mitochondria, about 5,000 per cell in the heart, per cell, not in the whole heart, but per cell of the heart. So the good news is, and this is why I've put in a big bright color, when mitochondria are functional, then you have health. So mitochondria effectively kill off damaged, potentially cancerous cells that are produced daily, replacing them with healthy cells. How do they do that? I've just said they have their own DNA, and they also have ribosomes, which create proteins. So mitochondria are very, very important. And where do we now begin to look at things that impact mitochondria? We have talked about inflammation. Last year, we spent a long time talking about inflammation. And I want us this year to be so aware of inflammation that we'll do whatever we can for ourselves to reduce levels of bad inflammation. Now, inflammation has a role. For example, if you have burnt your hand or cut your fingers or done something, it is inflammation that marshals all the requirements to heal it. And that's an acute thing. The challenge is when it becomes a chronic, simmering, under the radar inflammation that you're not sure what is going on. So you'll go to the doctor and they will prescribe things to stop your symptoms. That is where the challenge is. So inflammation due to persistent environmental toxins, just to create awareness. Here are 8 ways that chronic inflammation can damage your body. And look at all those symptoms: memory loss, increased cardiovascular risk, that is heart and blood vessels, abnormal growth of healthy cells, that's what we call cancer, compromised digestion, loss of muscle tone, where people just become weaky and weak and thin, and or even weight changes, weight gain abnormally. The skin is not forgotten, accelerated skin aging, and joint pain and loss of mobility. Isn't this what we are hearing all the time? I think it is. So, are your mitochondria healthy? Have you asked yourself that? Because all they require, the basics, are oxygen and nutrition. Now let's look at the key nutrients: glucose, or some form of energy producing fuel. And then they need minerals like magnesium. I think we are excited that magnesium, or as a standalone, has been introduced throughout our markets because it's a big deficiency. Now, mitochondria have the capacity to store magnesium if it is available, and it creates health because magnesium is involved in over 400 enzyme reactions in the body. Right, and then omega-3 fatty acids, absolutely vital for the functioning of mitochondria. And so they actually work very well as a fuel, these ones, omega-3 and other essential fatty acids. And then vitamin Bs, the whole B complex, very, very important for energy production. And then there's something called L-carnitine. It is naturally made in the body if the body has the right nutrients, and that's you'll hear stressed again and again. It's made by the brain, the liver, the kidneys, and it is important to turn fat into energy. And I've said it, I'll say it again, fat is a better fuel than carbohydrates. It's a cleaner fuel. It leaves you with a clearer mind than too much carbohydrate, which glucose results from the breakdown of carbohydrate, okay? And then alpha lipoic acid, it's an antioxidant made naturally in the body. We also obtain it from food. It is so wonderful that we have it in the product that was launched here in Southern Africa, a product that I've been getting from East Africa, by the way. Thank you so much for allowing me to get it, because I've been on it for longer than it has been here. We only had it launched last week, and that is coenzyme Q10, but we'll talk about it later on. So all these are the key nutrients required. Do you recognize them? I believe you do, because we have them in our range. So when we talk central adiposity, that is belly fat, I'm intending to do a specific training on belly fat, and I want us to invite our loved ones that we care about, particularly the men folk, but we'll talk about that later. So belly fat is described as when the belly is larger than the hips, and it looks something like that. There is a large collection of fat. Now, why is that fat there is the question. And I keep on asking why, because when we were growing up, we never had men who look, and women, not just men, and children, by the way, who had so much belly fat. In those days, it wasn't such an issue. Now, the significance of belly fat is actually an indicator of the metabolic syndrome, which is a pre-diabetes situation, and it's associated also with excess insulin. It is accompanied by high blood pressure as a result of chronic inflammation due to the high insulin levels, the excess insulin. It also is accompanied by dangerously high levels of blood fats. We call it dyslipidemia, and that results in tissue damage, particularly the kidneys. And then obviously there is weight gain, which will result in joint damage and self-esteem issues, self-image issues. Now, these are the kind of things that are being medicated to try and vary the blood pressure or bring down the blood sugar without going to the root of the possible causes. And that's why we're having this particular training. Anyway, the sequence of events over a long time is that elevated fats in the blood will result in fat being deposited around the middle of the body. And also fats increase the chances of serious events like stroke and heart attack. So whenever you see that there is fat accumulating around the middle, please take it seriously and help to educate people that they are solutions. Now, a lot of people, as I've pointed out, will run and have situations medicated, but they don't stop to look around themselves and say, what am I using that might be creating toxins to accumulate in my system? Okay, so toxins are the reason for increase in body fat. I'll repeat that. Toxins, they are the reason, or one of the reasons, for increase in body fat, because now the body has to protect itself. And so the fat cells actually expand to soak up those toxins and try and cushion them and cocoon them away from the bloodstream. So over the past 50 to 60 years, over 80,000 chemicals have been added to our day-to-day use. Over 80,000 chemicals added. And you'll find them in food, water, detergents, personal care, fabrics, furniture and carpets, medications, and all that. For example, is your deodorant toxic? Because aluminium has been linked to breast cancer. Other things like parabens, various very hectic things that destroy the central nervous system. This is an alcohol that is found in a lot of sprays and sanitizers and things like that. It can be quite toxic. Phthalates. Phthalates are all over the place, very common in washing powder, to the extent that I once had to verify. So I phoned head office of Neolife to ask whether they could certify that there were no phthalates in our washing powder. And I got a big green tick, no, there are no phthalates in there. And then triclosan, it's been classified as a pesticide in many countries, and as a result, it has been stopped. But you have creams and lotions with triclosan. So people are using a lot of toxins without being aware. And that's where I want us to educate people. So now, toxins, environmental toxins, are the missing piece of the puzzle in disease causation. All of you who know me have known that I have been preaching and teaching about cleaning products. Because if anybody wants to have a look at this opportunity, with all due respect, it's good to start with TreeNN and the core products and all that, but it is important to understand that because everybody has some washing to do and cleaning around the house, this is where we should emphasize beginning. And then the money saved will sustain affordability of the nutrition products. I'm telling you this because that is my testimony, and I want each and every one of you to try it out. Introduce people to the cleaning, and then they'll see that they're saving money. And then, of course, the body itself has to be detoxed regularly. TreeNN in the core products affects the beginning of a detox and an ongoing detox. But from time to time, such as now at the beginning of the year, it's good to do an enhanced detox with these products: garlic, stage 6 beta guard, multi-mineral is another good detox program. We have acidophilus in some markets, not others, but you can make your own acidophilus food by fermenting some vegetables. Yes, and then we had magnesium introduced to the East African market last week. We've had it for a few months. I've talked about mitochondrial health, the importance of creating energy. So you can see on the bottle, it promotes energy production, muscle function, and normal psychological function because of its role in a lot of processes, but particularly the functioning of mitochondria. Then we had introduced CoQ10, coenzyme Q10, or ubiquinone, and there are other CoQ10s out on the market. Neolife took its time to come up with a food-sourced, highly biodegradable, very effective CoQ10, which will support heart health and cellular energy. Now, I just realized that because I have been on CoQ10 for quite a while now, that was the missing piece in my efforts over all the years that I had been trying to manage my weight. Then I started CoQ10, I think it was in 2019 or 2020, thereabouts. And then suddenly my weight management and loss of excessive fat just became easier. And now I'm very happy to say that I have more energy, and I feel that my self-esteem is as it should be. So I want to thank you all for being here, and I want you to think, what topics would you like us to discuss? I'll stop sharing and have a look at who is here. Okay.